Welcome, viewer. Picture this: England 1471. The Wars of the Roses have turned the country into a medieval episode of Succession, only with more heads on spikes and less witty banter. Edward IV, the man-mountain with a fondness for feasts and the occasional bit of fratricide, is now king without rival. Or so he thinks. Because, as every historian and Game of Thrones extra knows, there's always another rival. Sometimes they even come pre-installed in your own family. Let's take a gentle stroll. No, a wild gallop through betrayal, murder, royal pensions and more family drama than a Christmas episode of EastEnders. And trust me, nobody gets out of this story with a happy ending. Except possibly the king's accountant. Edward IV is feeling invincible. He's got a couple of healthy baby sons, future insurance policies for the House of York, and two ambitious brothers, George, Duke of Clarence, the fun brother, if you like murder mysteries, and Richard, Duke of Gloucester, who is basically lurking in the background collecting titles like they're Pokemon. Now, you'd think after winning a kingdom, Edward might take up yoga or mindfulness, and no. Our Eddie's hobbies are punishing enemies and really creative fundraising. Cities that supported the wrong side, fined. Rich rebels, hanged. By their purses, not their necks, because Eddie loves cash more than carnage. The poor? Well, less lucky, but at least he's not picky. Meanwhile, Edward's also handing out jobs and land. Richard of Gloucester gets the north and a castle so dramatic, even Downton Abbey would call it overkill. He also gets a wife, Lady Anne Neville, who must have updated her relationship status to "it's complicated" after her family got destroyed by her new in-laws. George, meanwhile, is having a proper tantrum. Wants more land, more titles, more everything. The medieval equivalent of a younger sibling screaming, "It's not fair," at the Christmas dinner table. The brothers even debate their grievances before the Royal Council. This is Parliament as primetime reality TV. Whose land is it anyway? Edward, never one to pass up a good war, or at least the promise of one, sets his sights on France. Loads up an army, hauls across the Channel, and even brings his own portable royal man cave. Yes, a wooden leather-covered house, just in case the campaign gets a bit drafty. The plan? Join forces with Charles the Bold of Burgundy. The reality? Charles the Not-So-Bold shows up late, with fewer men than a modern British queue for a Greggs sausage roll. Edward, seeing the writing on the medieval wall, skips the war and skips straight to negotiations. Cue the Treaty of Picquigny, aka the greatest medieval bribe ever recorded. Louis XI of France pays Edward to take his army and go home. 75,000 crowns up front, a 50,000 crown annual pension, and a promised marriage alliance that naturally never happens. Edward returns home considerably richer, if not exactly more heroic. It's as if someone funded a blockbuster war movie and got a tax rebate instead of an actual film. Genius, really. Now back to family business. George, Duke of Clarence, is bored, angry, and convinced the world owes him everything. After a suspicious death, his wife's, he accuses one of her servants of murder, has her hanged, and generally behaves as if he's auditioning for the medieval version of Loose Women, but with more poisonings. Clarence gets increasingly rebellious, finally accused of treason after a series of increasingly desperate and unhinged acts. The Parliament, obedient as ever, finds him guilty on evidence about as convincing as a modern MP's expenses claim. He's sent to the Tower and, according to legend, drowned in a butt of Malmsey wine. Now, some say it was a wine barrel, others say it was just a bath, but either way, if you're going to die for treason, go out marinated, I suppose. Cheers, George. Edward IV has now literally removed his biggest internal threat. Ruthless? Absolutely. Effective? You bet. Family dinners will never be the same. With Clarence gone, Edward spends his remaining years making lucrative marriage deals for his surplus of children, but never quite manages to actually marry any of them off. Instead, he invests heavily in wool, cloth, and, crucially, royal power. When Edward dies, either of cold, apoplexy, poison, or most likely death by overindulgence, he leaves England richer, more stable, and for the first time in 200 years, with no royal debts. Imagine a king actually balancing the books. Even the treasury needed a sit-down. But here's the twist. All Edward's careful planning is about as useful as a chocolate teapot. Because as soon as he croaks, the real chaos begins. His eldest son, Edward V, is only 13 and under the protection of his uncle, Richard of Gloucester. The Queen, Elizabeth Woodville, runs for sanctuary again, stuffing Westminster Abbey with more royal baggage than Heathrow at Christmas. Richard, Duke of Gloucester, moves fast. First, he protects young Edward V by moving him, surprise, to the Tower of London, allegedly for his coronation, but let's be honest, if your uncle offers you a nice room in the Tower, history suggests you should politely decline. Richard purges the Woodvilles from power and rewards his own allies, including the ever-ambitious Duke of Buckingham. Next up, Richard starts getting nervous, possibly paranoid. Writes frantic letters to his northern supporters, starts seeing conspiracies everywhere, and at a council meeting famously asks for strawberries from the Bishop of Ely before dramatically accusing Lord Hastings of treason and having him executed. If only every work meeting ended with a snack and a beheading, productivity would skyrocket. Then, in a masterclass of gaslighting, Richard has a tame priest declare the princes in the Tower illegitimate and himself the only true son of York. The people of London respond with the medieval equivalent of, "Sure, mate, whatever you say." And Richard is crowned King Richard III, after, of course, a bit of forced cheering and some very awkward public speeches. As for the two young princes, let's just say the Tower of London's TripAdvisor reviews take a nosedive around this time. The princes vanish, and Richard's reputation as England's villain-in-chief is sealed forever. So, viewer, what did we learn today? Never assume your brother is happy with second place. If you must invade France, make sure you get paid up front. And never, never trust an uncle who invites you to the Tower. Medieval England, where every family reunion is potentially fatal, and the only certainty is that someone, somewhere, is about to lose their head, metaphorically or otherwise. Swipe wisely, viewer, and remember, history is basically just one long episode of Who Wants to Be King. Did you spot any Easter eggs? Comment below if you did. Follow for more history drenched in sarcasm and dread.